everybody. Thanks for coming. We're so excited that you're here. Again, my name is Cindy James. I'm with Agape Hospice. I know that's an ugly word and nobody wants what I'm selling, and I get it. But we've got some great information for you today. And I know you can read, I know the slides say Alzheimer's disease. I get that. But in our education department at Agape Senior, we have what we call Agape University. And we have lots of courses on caregiving. So just ignore that Alzheimer's word, because we're going to talk about caregiving in general, because anytime you are a caregiver and taking care of folks with a life-limiting illness, there are a lot of similarities no matter what the disease process. So I just wanted to say that. Our speaker today is Dean Cortese. He is one of our chaplains with Agape. He has years of experience working with families, individuals that are for loved ones or that have a need or struggling with a life-limiting illness. So I'm going to have Dean come on up, and he's going to talk a little bit about being a healthy caregiver, and then we're going to open it up for questions at the end. So come on, Dean.
Thank you, Cindy. It's good to be here with you all today. I have been a pastor for over 31 years in different kind of settings, from a youth pastor up in Western North Carolina to working with our denomination's missions agency, and then coming back to Western North Carolina as an associate pastor. And it was during the end of that time as an associate pastor that I got involved in going to the hospital more and have a taste of what they call of clinical pastoral education at Mission Hospital up there in Asheville. And I got really interested in becoming a chaplain. And so it worked out great that I got accepted at Greenville Hospital System in 08-09 to be a chaplain resident. And that's where I began my actual experience as a chaplain. And over these last 8 years, I've had opportunity to work with a couple hospices, both in Spartanburg as well as in Greenville. And now with Agape, I'm located in Spartanburg. But I live in Hendersonville and commute down each day. And it's really not a big deal at all, because I used to live in Atlanta and had to commute there too. So it's I tell you, and Greenville's getting to be like Atlanta a little bit too in this traffic, isn't it? So it is good to be here. And I think one thing I kind of put in my bio, because I really think strongly about this, is that I come here today as a learner. I'm not an expert when it comes to caregiving. I need to really learn about caregiving for myself too, because professionally, as I try and care for patients and families, and now also for our hospice staff, I need to be reminded of what caregiving and what good, healthy caregiving is for me as well. And working with patients and families, it's the same with them as well. So I'm hoping today that we can learn from one another, that we can support one another. I don't feel like I've got all the answers. I hope this time will be somewhat interactive. If you have a comment to make or have a question, I'd love to hear from you as the things that have given you strength, have given you some wisdom at how to handle the difficult task of caregiving, and also what's given you hope. Because as we share with one another, it encourages each other. And so there's no question that's silly, and there's no comment that can't really encourage somebody else's heart and mind, but who knows if they're thinking about it as well. I've given you some handouts. I gave them to you because, one, I want you to be able to take them home. One of them contains some of the PowerPoint slides. And there are some old brochures there too. They're not in print anymore, but many years ago our company put those out. And again, obviously it talks about dementia caregivers, but as Cindy said, caregiving is caregiving. Whether you're doing it as a professional or if you're doing it in your home with a loved one, whether it's your mom or dad, your husband, your wife, a child, or whatever the case may be, it carries over from one relationship to the next. And some of you now have cared for others, and now you're caring maybe for somebody else in your home, or you're being cared for. So that's my hope. Really what this is about is taking care of the caregiver, or self-care. How do you take care of yourself while you're caring for somebody else? Probably the number one thing that you're going to hear me say throughout our time together, and I hope you already know this, is that we can't do this alone. We weren't intended to do it by ourselves. We're not that strong. We don't have that strength. It's too much for one person. And I know in a lot of situations you're the only one. In a lot of families that we work with, there's maybe one or two that actually provide the caregiving, even though there might be others that are available and open to it. But only one or two usually do the bulk of the caregiving. And they have no regrets, but I know that they can get worn out. And the big issue is when we try and do it by ourselves is we get isolated. We face isolation, and when that happens, we begin to lose some perspective of what's going on, like we're the only ones that are going through this. And that's where we need one another, remind each other, and having groups like this to come together and support one another. I know this is a speaker meeting. I don't know if they have other support groups that meet at times, but I really encourage you to get involved or become part of one of those, or other ways to find support. Because loss of perspective can often lead to being down and get depressed, stress, burnout, overcaring. You've heard the word compassion fatigue. Like, you've done so much, I can't do anymore. We're giving and giving and giving, but the problem is after a while, if we're not filling ourselves back up, providing some kind of self-care, that giving becomes that we're giving out of an empty tank. And that's really where burnout comes, is when we're giving and giving and giving and we have nothing left to give. And then we just want to give up. We get overwhelmed, which makes sense. So we're going to go through some of these PowerPoints, and again, I'm hoping that we'll stop along the way, because I want to hear from you guys too, some of your thoughts and feelings in regards to caregiving. And I'm going to skip over some of these slides because they do deal particularly with late stage dementia. But here are some of the objectives for today, is to learn how to be a healthy caregiver. Begin to notice the signs and symptoms of depression, learning the symptoms of caregiver stress, and ways to cope with stress and depression. One of the first things, is when we're given care, it's one of the hardest things we do. So physically, emotionally, spiritually, and relationally, it's really, really difficult. And if you don't already see a doctor on a regular basis, it would be a good thing. And particularly to pay attention to what your body is trying to say to you, and not to ignore that. I wonder how many of you actually go to the doctor on a regular basis. I don't know about you, but I remember my dad would never go to the doctor. He refused to go to the doctor unless it was absolutely necessary. In fact, my mom had to go to the point, not only would she fuss at him all the time, but she'd have to even set the appointments for him so that he would go. And I don't know about where you guys are in that regards, but I know for me as a caregiver, as I go in and work with patients and families and they're going through terminal illness, that there's certain points in the week, like Thursday and Friday, for example, I'm just wore out. And I said, why am I so wore out? I'm sleeping all right, but I'm just tired emotionally because of the caregiving and the investment, into the lives of others. And I know for me as an introvert, I'm one who can give for little, and I really enjoy being with people and, being involved in groups and care groups and, support groups and things like that, or do devotions and assisted living facilities. But when I'm done, I'm tired. And I need to have some time, maybe not a lot of time, but some time to get away and recharge. That's why I enjoy my weekends, when I get an opportunity to enjoy them, because it gives me an opportunity to get recharged. And that's just some of the things that we need to be thinking about too when it comes to caregiving. So notice what's going on in your body. Any exhaustion, stress, sleeplessness, or changes in appetite or behavior should always be taken very seriously. Just recently, I was talking with a caregiver who has been taking care of her sister for 5 years in another disease process. And just recently, she had a sudden decline. What she did is she takes 3 weeks to be there with her sister. She's got a home about an hour away, and she has somebody come sit for that with the sister for a week, and then she goes to take care of her home, but also get recharged. But during that time that she was gone this time, her sister had a fall and declined really quickly. And the sister was crying out continually day and night for different loved ones that she was trying to speak to. And every time the sister would cry, it would just tear up the sister that was taking care of her. She'd be crying. Even when I went to visit, every time she heard it, she had tears in her eyes. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't eating. She had lost 10 pounds. But she was bound and determined, no matter what I said, that she was going to be with her to the end. And I was concerned for her, that she wasn't going to take care of herself and wear herself out. And as you know, sometimes the caregiver can end up being sick as well, and then aren't able to give the care that they would love to give to their loved one. So ignoring these warning signs can cause some physical and mental health declines as well. What do you think are some symptoms of depression? What do you think are some symptoms of depression? If you want to say a few things, you can turn over to the next page. It'll give you some too. I can let you cheat there if you want. What are some symptoms of depression? Loss of interest, maybe the things that you've done in the past, yeah. Don't have no energy, to get out. Good.
Difficulty concentrating.
Right. Thinking or concentrating or being able to stay focused. That happens too when we go through grief. Sleeplessness, yeah. That's what that one caregiver was experiencing. What's that? Oh yeah, you can't get out of bed at all. Right. I guess when you see these kind of extreme changes, we all have moments, obviously, when we're depressed or down. Caregiving's not easy. So we're going to have some of those moments, but when we see it as a pattern for a long time, that's when we need to think about getting the help that we might need. I have one patient, we have several patients, but I have one patient in particular whose primary diagnosis is Parkinson's. His wife is the primary caregiver. And she not only cares for him in the afternoon, but in the morning, her mom is also on hospice, and she's with her. So she's caregiving to her mom with another sister, and then she comes home and caregives for her husband as well. And one of the things that she said right up front is that she's always depressed. She's always depressed, easily irritated, that she has no life. The one thing that they like to do when he's able and the weather's good is they like to get out to the races, the local races and some of the local race tracks. When they can get out and enjoy it, it just kind of lifts up her spirits. Sometimes she just has to get out of the house and walk around the yard and just get back in touch with nature and sunshine and be refreshed. But she's finding, as her husband continues to progress in the disease process, that he's much more emotional, he's more irritable. Things that have always been issues over the years keep coming up and coming out, and it's difficult and hard. And sometimes he'll say things that really hurt her, and sometimes she'll have to walk around the yard, just to let it go and understand that it's not just him, it's the disease process that's going on. And but other times she's learning to stand up for herself and speak back and share how she's thinking and feeling too. But you know what's going on, whether it's Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or whatever the case may be, is that a lot of grieving and loss is going on as this process is moving forward. The roles are changing. The relationships are changing. The one with Parkinson's doesn't have the independence that they once had. This man feels like he's a burden to his family. Although he doesn't want to leave them and enjoys them, yet he doesn't also want to be a burden. And some of us get to the point where we say, we didn't sign up for this. We didn't know it would be this hard.
If someone's suffering from depression, I would assume that they're...
I think sometimes it has to come from, some outside. I know in our situations, because we have a team that goes in, social worker and a chaplain and maybe a CNA or a nurse, from a hospice perspective, that we can see some of those things and we can bring it up and talk to them and encourage them to go to the doctors. Maybe sometimes it's just another family member. Maybe they're not doing the caregiving on a regular basis, but they're still visiting, and has to encourage them, to get the help that they need. And that leads into the next part, is what are helpful things that we can be doing, not only with our own depression, but helping others with theirs as they deal with their depression. What are some things that you guys have seen be helpful, or you found to be helpful? Talking about it. That's again where we can't do this by ourselves. We need help. We need help. I don't know about you, but I know I've struggled with depression in the past and anxiety. And I was hesitant at first to take some medicine. And a lot of people are, because they don't want to put something foreign into their bodies. But I realized there were some helpful things out there that could help me, and others encouraged me and talked with me about taking some medication that helped even me out. And it's made a huge difference in my perspective, able to handle better the stresses that do come into my life. But it takes a while, as this slide says, sometimes for that medication to kick in. So you got to give yourself some time to allow that to encourage your body and your spirit. So that's one way. Talking about it, counseling. It doesn't necessarily have to be a professional counselor, but one of the things that I do regularly is I see a counselor at least once a month, because I need to process the things that are going on in my life, not only in the home and my relationships, but also, as in my work and in my life in general. I need that kind of help. But I know we all don't have the means to that or the time for that if we're caregiving, and it's taken a lot of time and effort. But we need to be talking, expressing our thoughts and feelings, finding one person, a responsibility partner, if you want to call it, that we trust. Because sometimes we may not be able to be part of a group because of our caregiving, or there aren't that many caregivers involved. But somebody who will listen to you, who will hear you, who will come alongside, who won't fix or judge. Somebody that will just let you be where you are and talk and express and just come alongside as a companion. Again, I think I've said this many times already, but let's face it, caregiving is stressful. It's one of the most stressful things we can do. We were not meant to do this alone. We need the help of one another and others. It could be somebody in your church, it could be somebody in another group, perhaps somebody out of this group here that understands exactly how you're thinking and feeling. What are some steps you can take to help yourself? What are some coping skills? Here again, we've said some of these things, but letting family and friends help you, seeking out caregiver support, whether it's the group or responsibility partner or friend, journaling. I don't like to write myself, but once I do, it really seems to help, getting my thoughts and feelings out on paper. learning ways to relax and manage stress, and taking time for yourself. That's hard, I know, because you're the only one there. Caring for your loved one a lot of time. Depending on where they are in the process, you don't have a lot of time for yourself. But that's one thing, too. I know that we as a hospice team, we like to encourage volunteers. If somebody can come alongside and come in and sit with a loved one, or maybe you have a sitter services, friends, church members, or something that can be there so you can get away. One of the things also that is provided in hospice is what we call respite. That's where you can, maybe once a month, you can get away for 5 days or just have some time to be refreshed and relaxed and renewed. So there's a lot of different ways to deal with caregiver stress. What are some things anything you've learned that have helped dealing with caregiver stress that you might want to add?
Physical movement of some sort.
Physical what?
Movement.
Movement, yes. Even if it's only 10 minutes a day, they say that's helpful. But diversion, something to take your mind off what's going on, and that's fun. That renews you. That gives you some energy and strength. I know it says Alzheimer's on this particular slide, but again, caregivers in general frequently report experiencing high levels of stress. It can be overwhelming to take care of a loved one, but too much stress can be harmful to both of you. It's easy to get caught up when it comes to caregiving if you're not taking care of yourself, into overcaring and burning out, to giving and giving and giving until you're on empty and you need to fill that tank. I gave you a little handout on burnout and overcaring, and I would encourage you maybe just to take a moment or two to take that little self-test, or if you don't want to do it now, you can do it later. But think back over the last 12 months and how true are some of these things for you? Am I experiencing burnout? And there's some examples from one psychologist of what burnout is. But I encourage you to look at that. And the whole idea, too, of signs and symptoms that you care too much. And think about just where you are right now when it comes to caregiving. Maybe you're fine right now, and that's good. But maybe down the road you can hang on to this or help somebody else with it as they process where they are and the help that they need. So what are some symptoms you think of caregiver stress? Helplessness. Hopelessness? Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah, hopelessness and helplessness. Has anybody else experienced that too, where you're the only one and you try to get help and you're not able to? Or maybe some suggestions of help that's out there? Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate that. But you can see here that there's a lot of symptoms, and helplessness and hopelessness is one of those as well. What are some ways that we can cope with stress or help one another cope with stress? That's the next slide here. I keep doing this. Keep going too far. Again, just stressing that we're not made to do it alone. We're never meant to do life on our own, and I don't care what area you're working in. But it really goes against this Western idea or ideal of rugged individualism. and which is really part of our ingrained culture and part of what we're bred in, that we have to keep a stiff upper lip and keep going. And I think there are some other things that we can be doing to relieve some of our stress and perhaps deal with our depression. We talked about diversion. We talked about just simple movement and exercise. There's some relaxation techniques that can be used. Have you guys done any of that before? What kind of things have been helpful to you? Would you like to share some of those? Okay. Can you give me an example? Like, just pick a goal and try and do it, and then you feel kind of better about what you were able to accomplish.
Something like yoga.
Not only does it strengthen, but also as you're breathing and you're focusing on your breath, it helps you tend to relax. My wife just spoke recently of a picture. She deals with some issues from abuse as a child, but just as having a bathrobe with a hood, and not just a picture, but kind of wearing something like that, and it feels soft, and she feels safe and protected. I mean, it could be a picture that you have or a visualization of something that is peaceful and calm that you can be thinking about. They just feel comfortable and relaxing. I never tried one, so. It sounds calming the way you're talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go to sleep now.
Well, that's one of the techniques to help me sleep.
There's one of the handouts I gave you after the burnout, and the caregivers, I think it's the signs and symptoms that you care too much. It's called a self-companionship manifesto, or you might want to say just affirmations. And I have found in other recovery groups that having affirmations and referring to them regularly, if not daily, or putting them up in a place where you'll see them, reminds you of how to take care of yourself. I deserve to lead a joyful, whole life. My caregiving or my work that I'm trying to do, my caregiving does not define me. I'm not the only one, who can help, this person or this one who needs care. I must develop healthy eating, sleeping, and exercise patterns for good health. If I've been involved in my caregiving for too long, I may have forgotten how to take care of myself. I must maintain boundaries in my helping relationships. I'm not perfect, and I must not expect myself to be. Give yourself a break. I must practice effective time management skills. I must also practice setting limits and alleviating stresses I can do something about. I must listen to my inner voice, to my body. I should express the personal me in both my work and play, things that I enjoy doing, and not to forget that I am a spiritual being. I must spend time alone focusing on self-understanding and self-love. And if any of those affirmations or one of those really speak to you, then there's a good thing, maybe put it on a 3x5 card or place it on the mirror or someplace that you'll see regularly to remind you of caring for yourself. One of the things that I've done, particularly with breathing exercises, is with some patients we have what we call the Jesus prayer, where we're breathing in and just saying Jesus, and then breathing out, have mercy. Jesus, have mercy. I'm part of a men's contemplative prayer group, and this past month we've been encouraged 3 times a day, 10 minutes a day, just to quote Psalm 23. Now, I don't know where you are spiritually, in that regards, whether you're part of the Judeo-Christian, but if you are and that's something that would appeal to you, I find it very relaxing and refreshing. Just getting alone I do it a lot of times when I'm in the car, and I'm sure people are thinking, what is he doing when he's going up and down the road, speaking out loud to himself? But they're reminders that I'm not alone. One of the things, too, is just focusing on my breath like in yoga. Not trying to force a big breath, but just focus on my breath. And when thoughts come, because they will come, acknowledge them, but then let them go and just go back to your breath. Start with that for 5 minutes a day. Work up to about 20 minutes 2 times a day. And you'll find that it really helps in the long run with dealing with your stress. So there's a lot of different ways. Get moving. One of the things that I have found is there's an 8-Fit kind of like app you can put on a phone. But for 10 to 12, 15 minutes a day, it'll give you an exercise plan, but it'll also give you a diet plan, if that's something you're interested in, to help you get moving and to eat, healthy and relieve some of the stress. What are some tips that we've been talking about? Managing your level of stress. Be realistic as to what to expect. Give yourself credit, not guilt. Take a break and accept changes. The last little part in there is really about tips for improving your health. Because we all know that the 3 core things of really taking care of ourselves is not only sleep and exercise, but also eating well and eating healthy. That helps us when it comes to our level of stress. Here's some things to remember. If we're going to be able to provide care for others, we've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to practice self-care. And if you know that you're sinking and you're sinking into depression, then do see your doctor immediately. Or if you see somebody, as somebody mentioned here earlier, get involved in their lives and encourage them, to pursue the help that they need. Get moving and stay active. Take care of yourself. Make sure your diet is at a healthy level. Be realistic and accept changes as they come along. Just recently, this past Friday, I was speaking with our staff about caregiving. And I was talking about taking care of themselves as they give care to patients and families. They face a lot of stress. And take care of yourself by staying centered. In our culture, there's always the be more. I've got to be doing, achieving, accomplishing, taking responsibility, as opposed to learning to just be. But in doing and helping others, but when we're doing and helping others all the time, like you guys are, we need to find the time to be and help ourselves. Because we're always doing. There's always things to be done around the house or with the patient or loved one. So we can always be doing and helping others, but we need to be and help ourselves. All of us center our lives on something. We find life and meaning, whether it's in our relationship with God or a higher power. Maybe it's in nature. Maybe it's someone or something that's important to us, that drives us and motivates us. This is the prayer that I shared with our staff, and it's called Practicing the Virgin Prayer. It actually comes from a Catholic priest who is into contemplative centering prayer. And he wrote this in regards to the Mother Mary. And this is what he wrote. From Luke 1:48 says, God regarded her in her lowliness. When it comes to being, you must seek to be a blank state. You must desire to remain unwritten on. No choosing of this or that. Not I am good because, nor I'm not good because. Neither excitement nor boredom. Remaining nothing, an unchosen virgin. And unchoosing too, just empty. no storyline by which to start the day, no identity enhancers nor losses to make yourself valuable or not. Nothing interesting, nothing uninteresting, neither against nor for something, nothing to recall from yesterday, nothing to look forward to today. Just me, naked, exposed, no self to fix, change, or find, nothing to judge right or wrong, important or unimportant, worthy or unworthy. I stand and wait, neither powerful nor powerless, for you to name me, for you to look upon my face, for you to write my script, for you to give the kiss in your time and your way. You always do, and it is always so much better. And she gave birth to her firstborn, who was the Christ. In whom or in what do you find the center and the ground of your being? I would encourage you, if you want to take care of yourself, to come to that place regularly, if not daily, and find that center, whatever it is, whether it's in nature, as I said, or a higher power, for the person or thing that you look to name you, who you look to for approval and acceptance and a smile, who you look to write your script, to give you the kiss in their time and in their way. So I hope it's been helpful as we've talked about caregiving stress and ways to deal with it. I was wondering if you have any questions or comments as we wrap up.
When we lived in Illinois, I wasn't on the board of pastors. We had what was called a convent.
I know this group of guys that I get with at least once a month, that's what we do, and that encourages us to continue to find our center, you know.
Part of the reason why I go to rock steady boxing and I go to pole walking with other guys is that,
Supporting one another. Yeah. There's some support groups you were talking about too that you have here that are available for folks to be involved in. Do you want to say anything about those?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to yell, though I don't have to, so I have to crowd him on the microphone. Can everybody hear me? I know many of you already participate in the support groups. The one on Earl Street Baptist Church, at Earl Street Baptist Church, is at 11 o'clock on the first Thursday of the month. And at 2 o'clock, it's at the St. Francis Cancer Center. So we try to be on opposite ends of the city a little bit and different times of day. So if you haven't attended to those already, we really want to encourage you and invite you to come. It gives an opportunity for caregivers to share and help each other and give each other ideas, and certainly for members to be able to also share what they're going through, and exactly what John was just saying, that it is a community, and what we want to try to do is encourage the community among all of you rather than us as gaps to each individual member, but to have the ability for all of you to be able to connect. We also started one in Seneca. If you know anyone who is in that area that would benefit from reaching out to a group, please let us know. We can reach out to them as well. And we do have, I've had several calls this week. We have a newly diagnosed class that is coming up on October 22nd. So again, if there are people that you know that you would like to invite to that, let us know. We can make sure that they get that information to go and again, start that community, start finding out more about the direction we take. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments or for the good of the group? Something that maybe, as we talked, or that kind of touched you or reminded you of something that you think might be helpful to others? What's that? Okay. Well, I'm sorry you got to that point. I'm glad you're getting some help, and thank you for your words. There's There's I mean, we need to hear that. Not to get to that point. Well, I'm glad you're here today. You're in the right place.
Okay. Well, again, we want to thank everybody for coming. Certainly, let's thank our guest speaker for being here and sharing really his and mission and certainly your heart with everyone for the compassion that you obviously share. And we want to, again, encourage you to continue to plug into the different groups. Come to the peer group meetings. Build the community within your community to get that support that is so helpful. Sometimes it's just having somebody to talk with about it that gets what you're talking about. So I really want to encourage you to attend those. And if for some reason you can't get to it, you're looking, you need help, you need a ride, you need somebody else, you would rather go with a friend, let us know and we'll see if there's something that we can do. Our goal at GAPS is to walk with you. To walk with you and to provide education, certainly to provide the support, but also an advocacy for the things that you might not be able to connect with. So we want you to reach out to us with those needs and hopefully we can plug you into the right place. So